Yo, what it do, guys? It's your boy Showdown Satch, and we are here with another chess video, man. The last one, it did terrible, I'll be honest, but I've gotten much better as a player. When I made that game, when I played the game in the last video, I was only at 1,000. I'm now at 1,300. So let's see if my new skills can carry me any farther. Now, the game we're looking at today, I was taking on this Russian guy. He's rated a 1367. I'm currently rated a 1307, so he does have a slight advantage on me, but it was a really good set of games. We played 3 games in total. We're going to go over that. And, just look at it. I'm not a grandmaster. Don't look at me for advice, but let's laugh at my stupidity a little bit because, I make mistakes, man. So first off, E4, best by test. We're going to start off, and he goes for a French, man. I'll be honest, I have no clue what to do against the French. I like to play the Ruy Lopez personally, so my idea here was bang. And it looks stupid. It probably is stupid. I'll be honest with my idea. Bring these pawns out, and now he's got I'm thinking this is like a weak pawn structure. I can pick off some of these pawns later, so I just back my bishop up. It looks pretty similar to what a Ruy Lopez line would look like. He decides to put his bishop there, whatever, and I move to c3 just to avoid my bishop getting trapped. As you see, he's trying to attack it, and also to take control of the center of the board. So yeah, we see we get d4, e4, d4, e4, and it's looking pretty strong. Computer says I'm a little bit better here. And then I just slide my bishop around. So yeah, he has nowhere to move that knight, so he has to put on the edge of the board. Pretty good for me. I'm just going to advance through a couple of these moves. And I allow him to take en passant here so that I can open up my rook along that A file. And he wants to pressure me. And the reason I did not take here is because I did not, he's got a bunch of pieces lined up on that B4 square. And I felt like it would have got him too good of an attack. So I decided to push the pawn. Always a good decision. And, he just breaks open the center here, and I'm like, well, I can't push both of these pawns. I'm going to lose something, so might as well go ahead and trade these pieces off, and then I push the e-pawn, because if I take, like I said, he can get his queen there, and it's just not looking good. So he pushes again, so, I just ignore it. Oh, honestly, I don't ignore it. I defend this pawn instead of trying to push, like I said, once again. If his knight gets there, it's probably going to be bad news for me. That's at least what I'm thinking in my head. I'm like, I need to close the position. He pushes. And then I just castle. I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Let's not worry about the queen side. I need to get my king to safety, and that's what I do. And then he makes a random h6 move. Not really quite sure what that does. So I ended up taking, and I let him get these double pawns, which, in hindsight, probably not the best decision. But I hit him with a check. He moves the king, and now I forked the pawn and the knight. So he goes ahead and pushes it. Not necessarily a fork, I guess. I wasn't really threatening to take it. He had it defended. But, just putting some pressure on. He pushes that pawn. I get my queen here. Like I said, just trying to eliminate these two pieces. He brings his queen out, so I'm like, all right, it's time to trade. We do a little bit of trades, and you see right here, beautiful, genius move. I'm pretty fucking brilliant for this. Knight here, he can't take or loses the queen. Beautiful, so I get rid of that pawn. And then a few moments later, like I said, I'm just bringing all the pieces together, trying to get this next pawn. He starts pushing on the king side, and right here, see, I thought I was a genius. It's actually not a bad move. Computer actually has me winning by a lot. Attack the queen, take the rook, and then right here I was like, oh, he's gonna take my queen, and then I get the bishop. Yeah, he can just take with the knight. So it didn't really work out as as well as I thought it was. But I have these 2 pawns. I'm gonna push them. Queen goes there attacking the pawn. I push it again. He brings the knight in, so these pawns are going. I bring a little bit of help here. So the idea was to push, discover attack, and then maybe I can get a queen. He slides the king over. Smart move by my opponent. And oh my god, I thought I hit him with a banger right here. Look, rook takes bishop, right? And I'm like, oh, all right, takes with the queen. Beautiful. And then I was going to take back, and then I'm like, wait a minute, that's just mate. So it didn't really work out. But like I said, these brilliant ideas don't work out too much. And as you see, it's completely even again. So I pushed that pawn. He gives me a check. Because now, I was hoping he would just do nothing. I could take his knight. Well, he didn't. His knight comes in. He's got a little bit of attack going here. But once again, I'm trying to get a little attack going on that king. He blocks the pawn, so I can't get the discovered attack. But he hangs his queen in the same move. So that's basically how this game went. Now it's just a cleanup effort. He hangs the queen. We kind of skip through these moves. I'm up a queen. I'm probably going to win, right? I go ahead, let him take my queen so I get a new one. Now it's just down to the rook. And then I figure, right here, I sacrifice the bishop and the queen because I get a new one. He has nothing, and he resigns. So that's game 1. Pop off. It was a really close game until he decided to hang his queen. But, that's what you do when you're 1,300. So, moving on to game 2, man. He's got to respect himself. And I thought he was pretty good. Other than that queen hang, it was a very strong game. So I'm like, you know what? We'll let this guy get a rematch. And, of course, I wanted some rating points. He's pretty significantly higher than me. So once again, no, that's the wrong game. So I'm not with white pieces twice. I know that much. I'm with the black pieces this time. Now he starts off with e4, and I go for a Sicilian. I like to play the dragon. That's what I've learned. And he just throws me off a game right away. Pushing this pawn immediately. So, you know, on the Sicilian, I'm like, you know, supposed to take that middle pawn. I take it, and then I boot his queen out the way. And I'm thinking, you know what? This isn't too bad for me. Apparently, this is some sort of gambit. I don't know it. But we're just going to play on. I'm just going to go for my dragon, you know, get that bishop fianchettoed over there. I push this pawn, try and develop my light squared bishop. And I do, and you know, I was thinking about pressuring a little bit, pressuring the strip, but I was like, I'm just going to get kicked out, you know. Now I have these two bishops here that are lined up. And he pushes that pawn. In hindsight here, I should just capture, well, shouldn't have captured right away. Never mind. But I want to put more pressure on it. He pushes the pawn. And right here, I think I'm in a good position. You know, I have a lot of pieces barreling down towards his king. I haven't castled yet, so he doesn't really have anything going on me. Bring the rook in. He pushes that pawn, takes, and I take again. And then knight here, discovered attack on my queen. And once again, brilliant move. At least I thought it was. I think it actually is a good move. Because, all right, he brings the bishop in. I take with check, and I just took with the wrong piece here. If I take with the rook, this is completely winning. I think it's forced mate. Yeah, mate and 8. But instead, I took with the bishop. He takes the bishop. And I was thinking, like, I had something here. There's just nothing here. Just nothing there. And then, yeah, it went from mate and 8 to plus 15 for white. So he takes advantage on the check, takes the bishop. And, I just resigned here. This is going to be mate. So he gets a game back on me. And we're going into game 3. You know, USA versus Russia. I have to win for my country here. You know, I'm feeling the pressure. Once again, I go back to my e4, and he doesn't want me to get into my little Ruy Lopez. So he's going to go ahead and play a Scandinavian, whatever. You know, it's kind of similar to what he did last time. Offer queen trade, and he takes it right away. Get the queens off the board, man. I don't want to deal with that. And, you know, because queen was doing a lot of damage in the last couple games. So I decided I need to get them boys off the board. And we're just going to play chess, man. So I'm playing really passive here. Develop both my bishops right there and go for a long castle. Because, you know, I like to play attacking games. I figured I felt like I was a better attacker than this guy, so that's why I decided to go long castles here. We boot the bishop out, or the knight out of the way, because obviously if I take, he opens up this pawn, and that's just not something he wants, right? So, yeah, there we go. There, I'm trying to push these pawns, you know, create an attack. That's what you're supposed to do when you castle long. Just pushing that pawn over and over, all the way to the end of the board, and he has to move his pawn. But, you know, with every pawn move creates weakness, as they say. Now he's on the counter attack here, but I think he's a little too slow. So I move to attack that pawn. He attacks my knight. And I get a little discovered attack here going. You know, I think I could have just taken this pawn. It was free. But I figured, hey, you know, if he takes, I take, I get the rook. So I was like, that's pretty good. He slides the king out the way, though. Exchange some pawns here. I do open up his rook. And then I don't know, a little trick right here. Beautiful trick. Because, I mean, if I take that, then he's kind of screwed either way. So I get the nice check here. And what I saw was knight blocks here. I take, and he basically loses the game. However, he played the right move. He blocked there, and I was like, all right, well, we got to put pressure on him, man. Just keep piling up these pieces. And at this point, I was like, man, what am I going to do? I thought about this move for a good, like, 5 minutes. Because I was worried. I'm like, okay, yeah, I can take, but he's just going to take my bishop, and then, like, I lose my attack. So I come up with this move. And I'm like, well, he takes here. I take your rook. And that's exactly what happens. He takes here. I take the rook. And now at this point, I just figured, all right, well, he's going to recapture, and it's whatever. And apparently the interest is I'm losing. I don't care. He takes my knight. I'm like, okay, I'll take your bishop. And then he takes my rook. And I'm like, all right, I'll take your bishop. And then, you know, right here, he takes my last bishop. I take his last knight. And we go into an endgame that's basically even, right? It's rook and knight versus rook and knight. Peter says he's winning. I don't know why. He's got all these weaknesses out here. I know he's got a pawn. These two pawns, nothing defending it. So I think I'm better. And I don't know. And I'm like, all right. He moves the knight here. And I'm like, well, let me get rid of his defense. He pounces on it. Gets another piece to come over. And I start bringing this knight. Trying to bring him to the game. And I get a little bit of a fork here, right? Because the threat is I can take this pawn. Or I can pawn takes on f4. And then takes, right? He brings the rook over, so we didn't see the second tactic, which was the pawn takes, and then I win a pawn, right? So now I'm, what, a pawn? No, now it's even pawns. And then I go here and I fork another pawn and a knight. He takes my pawn, I take his pawn. And we're doing a little bit of trade, a little bit of dancing here, you know? He pushes and I take the other pawn. Like I feel like I'm doing really good right here. Have a great end game going. Let's see what the computer says. I'm pretty sure it's gonna say it's even because it looks pretty. Oh no, I'm up. Okay, I am winning. I take there and we trade. So yeah, 3 pawns on 1. But they're on the opposite sides, right? So he starts pushing that pawn and I'm like, man, I gotta go deal with this. And I calculated that if we do this race, I'm gonna win it. But he brings the knight over. I'm like, all right, well, I still got to block. At this point, I'm like, all right, well, I can just push my pawn. I'm going to win. Well, no, because he's going to bring the king over and then check me, and I got to move, and it's going to be bad, right? So I'd bring my knight over. I'm like, all right, let's do a little bit of a dance here. He checks. I back up, and I'm like, you know what? I think this is good. I'm all right because he can't check me again. If he could check me again, that would be miserable. But he can't, so we're all right. I start pushing that pawn, and then I'm like, all right, well, I need to get something attacking this pawn so that as soon as he moves this knight, I can take it, right? So I start dancing this knight around, and for whatever reason, he just climbs up the board. I have no clue what he was doing there. I sack the knight, and I'm like, well, what are you going to do? You can't stop me making a queen. So I make the queen. I sack the other pawn because I'm like, why not? I'm going to win this endgame, right? It's 2 on none. And right here, yeah, he takes, and then it's just over. I get the queen, and he forfeits. And ladies and gentlemen, that's why your boy Showtime Satch is the best chess player in the world. I defeated Mr. Popov over here. Very strong man. And you know, if one of you guys want to take me on, challenge my belt, I'm here for it, man. So I'll catch you guys in the next video.